Good morning, everyone. So, welcome to the CGIAR FAO Pavilion. Please do put on these headphones. You can turn them on by giving a long press to the white button down here. The audio only comes through these headphones, so you will need to wear them to hear everything. It's to avoid all of the noise from the pavilions kind of polluting other pavilions. So please do grab headphones and get them on. We will be starting in just a few minutes. I see we have our panelists here. Please welcome to the front. So thank you so much for coming. And we do have a live streaming link, so for anyone watching online, also welcome and good morning. So my name is Laura Kramer. I work for the International Livestock Research Institute based in Kenya. And I'm pleased to welcome you all this morning to an event called Leveraging Science to Finance Solutions for Sustainable Food Systems. So today we have an exciting lineup for you. We will have some opening remarks, we'll have a presentation, and then we'll have panel discussion and Q&A. So I think we can get started. I hope everyone's headphones are working. And do you need, take those? I think, yeah, maybe just in case we get questions from the back of the room or something, we might want to have them. So I will first introduce, sorry, I need to get all of my my bios up here. So our first speaker is Michael from FAO. I've been told he does not need a surname. He's a mononym. And Michael is the Chief Executive Officer of FMO. And he joined their management board in September 2021 as CEO. Previously, he held several non-executive board positions, among others at Oxfam International and McKinsey, Triodos Bank, and Bain. He has over 15 years of experience in sustainable finance. He's also founded and led the global sustainable finance practice in his role as partner at Bain. He's also authored a book on future leadership. I'd love to see that and have a look at that. In his personal life, Michael ensures that he and his family live a climate neutral life and aims to be cumulative net zero before 2030. That's an excellent goal. So thank you so much, Michael. I will turn it over to you for your opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Laura, and thank you very much, audience, for taking the time to listen to me. I'm hopefully going to say something interesting. I'll start a little bit with why it's so important, and probably everybody knows, but just a couple of statistics. Are you aware that by 2024 we have over 700 million people that are not able to make the minimum calorie intake every day? And are you aware that every 30 seconds, according to the World Food Programme, a child dies from malnutrition or undernutrition? So while I speak for 3 minutes, that's another 6 children. And that's, of course, completely unacceptable. Now, we all know that the world population is only going to grow, so food is going to be more important. And as FMO, as we're a bank, we finance a lot of this stuff, and I'll give you a couple of examples that hopefully are inspiring in some way. But I'll get to the clue of how we need to do that all much better. So FMO is a development bank, as was mentioned, and we focus on 3 sectors only. We focus on financials, renewable energy, and agriculture. So most ones like IFC and all the other bilaterals, they do basically everything. We focus on these 3 because we think these are essential. So we finance agriculture kind of directly, from very small venture capitals to very large firms. But we also use banks and local banks a lot. This afternoon we will be signing the first kind of green loan with in Azerbaijan with an Azerbaijani bank. But what we very much believe is that climate, SDG 13, and reducing inequalities, SDG 10, go hand in hand. And it's super important because you cannot teach a hungry person about climate change. So we need to make sure that we provide sufficient food. So what do we do? For instance, we have internally a so-called sustainable finance advisory team as a bank. That team that helps our investment officers think through how can the food programs that we finance, the clients that we finance, go even beyond what they do. I already said, and that's with agriculture clients, but also said we have, for instance, a Nazira program where we guarantee banks on their losses. And that's especially handy for smallholder farmers because typically local banks think smallholder farmers are very difficult to finance and we will need them. One last example is around DFCD, which is a Dutch Fund for Climate Development, DFCD. Have a look at it at the internet because it's really kind of groundbreaking news. And we have a venture capital program. Now, so there's a whole suite of things. That's basically my second point. We do a lot. But then we get to the third point. What is working? And how do we scale it up? Because our core strategy is pioneer, develop, scale at FMO. And I told you what we're pioneering and how we're helping our clients develop. But then how do we scale? And I think for scaling up, we need to have much more data. And then some countries are very interesting. So we do a lot in Nigeria, we do a lot in Kenya and India because the numbers are so big. But then the question is, how can you extrapolate what you find there to other countries? How important is the local context? And I think there, a lot of research can be very, very helpful to make sure that these best practices are being shared, but also shared in the way that is really, really helpful. I want to leave it there and more than happy to kind of take questions and zoom into any of the examples and provide potentially more. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael. And I really like that you ended on that note of you're doing what you can, but you need more data. And how can you use that data to scale? So I think that's a really good transition to Anna's presentation. So Marie-Anna Daranokor is is the organization and origination and engagement lead at the CGIAR Hub for Sustainable Finance. Please welcome. And she's also a gender smart investment specialist. She has extensive experience in agribusiness in the Global South, implementing gender responsive solutions. She focuses on assessing gender and social inclusion impact of agricultural investments and designing gender-responsive technical assistance programs for agricultural small and medium enterprises and value chain actors. She leads the Impact SF pipeline development efforts in identifying innovative, high-impact investment opportunities through accelerator programs, innovation challenges, and engagements with value chain actors and agribusiness networks. So Anna has a presentation for us with some slides. So if you can't see from the back, please feel free to move a bit closer. And we'll hear her presentation, and then we'll invite a panel up for some discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ena Daranokor, and it's a real honor and a real pleasure for me to be here to present our work in how we're leveraging science to finance solutions for sustainable food systems. So today I will present to you the CGIAR Hub for Sustainable Finance and share with you 3 pathways on how we're engaging with asset managers and global investors, local banks, and agri-SMEs to leverage science and able to scale sustainable solutions. So the CGIAR Hub for Sustainable Finance has been formalized 3 years ago as a key technical partner for investors and lenders to be able to integrate science-based solutions in the investment lifecycle from design to execution. And here you can see a geographic footprint of our activities in the last 3 years. And in a nutshell, we've worked with 5+ investment vehicles co-designing innovative solutions with asset managers with an envelope targeting $750 million. We're working with more than 7 banks to develop climate smart bundle loan products, and we've supported more than 170 agri-SMEs through pipeline origination and acceleration programs. So now let's focus on asset managers and global investors. We know that there's a 300 to 350 billion finance gap to transform food, land, and water systems. But how can we work with asset managers so that they can deploy their capital sustainably? So how we bring innovative solutions with them for targeted intervention. And I really appreciate Michael's comment about targeted and research-based thematic areas that are really there to solve specific problems. We also work with them to find traceable and comparable impact measures and blended financial structures. And this allows them to be able to better qualify, quantify, and report on the impact of their ag and food investments. And we are also supporting them to avoid greenwashing by on one hand, helping them to set ambitious targets, but on the other hand, also reassuring that the measurement and the reporting is science-based. This is enabling surfacing of new segments for traditional investors. So looking at new frontier markets, looking at areas that are considered as hotspots, but with the additional information needed to actually deploy this capital. So this is to provide you an overview of the vehicles we've set up so far since 2020 and how we played a technical role partnering with asset managers to deploy the Amazon Biodiversity Fund with Impact Earth, Climate Smart Food Systems Fund with Responsibility, the Financial for Agricultural SMEs in Africa, partnering with INB. This one was recently launched 3 weeks ago on the sidelines of the World Bank meetings. And finally, Ag 360, that is in the fundraising stage, where we're partnering with Big Valley here today to be able to invest in circular economy and biochar projects. So I just want to take a deep dive into FASA to specifically let you know how we are integrating science in the process. So FASA is a fund of funds that will be investing in emerging funds in Africa or in existing fund managers that are launching a new fund focusing on agri-SMEs. So there's a big capacity building element there that to be able to really pinpoint the impact and report the impact of these investments. So we are developing a data infrastructure to be able to assist these fund managers to first classify the agri-SME that comes with a funding proposal, understand what the value chain stage of the SME, what is the role the agri-SME plays in the agri-SME, and then map this to the FASA impact themes and have a pre-populated green list of activity that is able to, based on CGIAR research and AI analytic power, quantify the impact before the investment. And then this will be validated over time through the monitoring and reporting activities. Now we talk about regional banks. Regional banks are the last mile lenders. They are the closest ones to the market that we are serving. They are the ones that supply more than 80% of the agricultural financing. However, when we talk about climate finance, there's a lot of work to be done because right now only 0.8% of climate finance targets small scale agriculture. So we're using CGIAR Science working with banks to develop green loan products, and through our assistance, automated risk and impact assessment, developing crop and livestock suitability measures, resilience mapping, recommendations of best practices, we are able to help those banks better identify climate risk for their lenders and promote better practices among them and improve the funding flow for small scale farmers. This enables the banks to expand their product offering that are targeted to resilient solutions. And we do this to our flagship solution, the Impact SF Analyzer. And you can see here, it provides the loan officer a map that is requires very limited inputs, such as the location and the value chain, and then generates this report to help what is the suitability in the upcoming season, not in 10 years, not in 20 years, in the next season, what is the productivity, what will be the hazards, and what are the recommended practices the farmer applying for the loan is able to implement to mitigate those climate risks that they will be facing. And finally, let's talk about agri-SMEs. So agri-SMEs are facing right now a $100 billion finance gap. And oftentimes it's not because of lack of capital demand. It's most of the time it's because they are unable to articulate their bankability and unable to demonstrate the impact their activities is generating on the ground. So we're working with them through acceleration and origination programs that are focusing on really thematic areas such as climate, biodiversity, nature, and gender, and integrate end-to-end impact analysis within those accelerator programs. And this enables the agri-SMEs to understand how this climate risk influence their business operations and their bottom line, and provides them with the tools that they need to effectively access this finance and be rewarded for the impact generated, whether it's emissions, biodiversity, and so on. So once again, I want to take you through an actual case. This is our work we're doing in Rwanda with the Rwanda Green Fund in the Adaptation Acceleration Program. So we're using data generated with the CGIAR research of the last 2 years to look at what are the experts, what do the experts say in Rwanda? What have been the prioritized value chains? What are the risks? What are the measures that have successfully been implemented? And we couple that with the Impact SF analyzer that is forward-looking. Within the next couple of seasons, what are the likely hazards? And then the SME comes in and it enables us to screen that and be able to put all of that together and produce a risk and impact assessment report. This report is useful for the agri-SME. It enables them to really understand what they can implement in the short term to be able to address their climate risk, be stronger operationally, and really be confident when they're talking with either impact investors or loan officers to really demonstrate, this is my plan, this is how I'm taking climate in consideration, and this is what I'm putting together to be able to scale my business. And everybody is on the same page around those thematics and can move forward with more visibility. And then I just want to end here with this logo wall to really emphasize that in addition to capacity building and technical assistance, what is most important in our work is partnerships. Partnerships so that we can build together impact. Partnerships we can build together value, and partnerships so that we can go faster together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. You can stay up here for just a minute. I want to see, before we let Michael come off the stage, are there any burning questions from the audience for Michael or Anna based on her presentation before I bring up the other panelists? Yes, Michael, please.
So thank you very much for the presentation. You have a lot of data and you'll do probably all type of analysis. Could you point out what kind of 1 or 2 data points are most important in what you gather to show kind of success or kind of making the difference? What is the 1 or 2 data points that really stand out?
Thank you, Michael, for this question. I'm going to talk about gender. It's my area of expertise. And what we are looking for that really makes a difference is the benefits generated by a particular activity for the women farmers. This really sets the difference because one, you can have the participation of women farmers, that's a good indicator to have, but the benefit, what is the additional revenue generated by the activity? What is the new access to climate information services? What is the actual benefit metric? That really says the difference because it goes beyond just reaching the women. It actually moves towards empowering them and making a transformation. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Did you have any follow-up question? Okay. All right. Thank you so much. So, Michael, I'll invite you to have a seat there. And I think we had planned for you to stay up if you want, or if you want to. Oh, okay. All right. I was planning to stand, but that's all right. So I want to invite some panelists up. And first, I'll invite Ms. Sharon Chirono up to the stage. Please have a seat. So Sharon is a project officer with the Kenya National Farmers Federation, KNAF. She's also an environmentalist and natural resource management specialist dedicated to advancing sustainable agriculture, climate resilience, and biodiversity conservation in Kenya. She has a Bachelor's of Science in Environmental Conservation and Natural Resource Management and has completed multiple professional programs in climate governance, project evaluation, and advocacy. With KNAF, she's a project officer and also part of the World Farmers Organization. So welcome very much, Chirono. Let me also invite Mauricio Benitez up to the stage. Mauricio is founder of Big Valley, an impact investment firm, and he's dedicated to advancing innovative investment funds geared towards fostering circular and regenerative business models within food systems. Prior to founding Big Valley, he dedicated 14 years to overseeing responsibility investments, agriculture, and sustainable food debt portfolio. His leadership resulted in the underwriting of over $2 billion in loans, the launch of the world's first blended finance fund that leveraged scientific evidence to drive investments in climate-smart agriculture, and the establishment of responsibility as an industry pioneer and leader. And finally, we have Paul Boissens, the CEO of Incofin. Paul is co-CEO. He joined Incofin in 2017 after an international career in finance at Deloitte and General Electric, driven by a strong interest for investment solutions that drive inclusive progress and sustainable transitions. Incofin offers private debt and private equity financing to businesses in emerging markets alongside technical assistance. And to date, Incofin has invested over $4.4 billion in 75 countries around the world, and their sector focuses on financial inclusion, agri-food, and clean, affordable drinking water. So I know we have these three wonderful panelists up here, but we are very lucky to have a fourth person who does need to leave before the end of the event. And so I want to actually give him the first opportunity to respond to the presentations, and then he'll have to go. Because and I say we're very lucky because he's a negotiator and he has to go for negotiations. Gonzalo Beconia has more than 24 years experience working as an agronomist with relevant professional experience as a producer, extension, research, international negotiations, and policy making. His focus of work has been cattle farming systems, including considerable experience in ag production and rural development. And in the last 14 years, his work has focused on the environmental impact of agricultural systems, mainly quantitative analysis of livestock greenhouse gas emissions and recent nutrient flow. So he's also the agriculture negotiator from Uruguay. So thank you so much for being here. We know that you have lots of other business to attend to. So we're glad to have you. And the first question, or we just want to give you the opportunity to speak from your experience in Uruguay, working on, and we know that Uruguay has a lot of innovative financing, especially around livestock. So for you, from Anna's presentation, from Michael's experiences at FMO, how do we bring this to the ground? How do we, at local level, leverage science to be making investments in food systems?
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the question. Good morning to everyone. Um, well, it's a big question. What do you ask? Uh, for me, I mean, for Uruguay, I can tell the experience of Uruguay and some other experience in the region. But as you know, the finance is something that is a key issue for agriculture. We always talk about finance for agriculture, and you know that the last agreement in Paris Agreement of the $100,000, only 4% went to agriculture, and mainly for mitigation and not for adaptation. Uh, Perhaps less than 1.5 went for adaptation, and adaptation is the key issue for our countries. But we know that for the financial opportunities, most of them they're coming for mitigations, and that's the key aspect that people want to finance and actions. What we find out, I mean, with the experience of Uruguay, we developed different instruments. We know that our quality of information, and this is a key aspect for financing. And I think that MRB is the key aspect, no, in this issue, because what they was told in the last presentation, to get more information, science-based solutions, um, more information about what are the results of the different policies that the countries put in place. That is a key aspect to measure and to for the finance organizations want to know if you are going to achieve the goals or not, what you said that you will. No, so for you, Uruguay has. I mean, it's a small country. I think that this is not easy for big countries, but for Uruguay, we have a really big base of information, data. Of we know the data of all of our farmers in the country, all are registered. We hope we have referential of all of them, of the location, and we have all the movements of product that they do in the whole year. So that makes a really good measurements of what they are the achievements in production. I'm talking about mainly about livestock systems. That is our big industry in Uruguay. We export more than 80% of our products of beef. So for us, it's a really important uh, agriculture product, and because of that, we have two bonds related to the achievements related to the NDCs. So here is where they come the convention in all this dialogue that NDCs are the main strategies and the main goals that the countries want to achieve in terms of climate actions, and where when there are people want to finance, they want to look at which are the NDCs of the country, of the strategy to reduce emissions and to achieve the goals of the climate impact to reduce 1.5, not known to achieve 1.5 degrees. So in that case, we developed two different instruments. One was an international bond that if we achieve the goals of our NDCs related to deforestation and the reduction of emissions, they reduce the interest rate of that bond. So that's something that most of the country develop instruments to finance actions in the country, but this is an instrument that if we achieve our environmental goals related to NDCs, they reduce the interest rate. And the second was a fund from the World Bank, was an instrument from the World Bank that we use it in Uruguay related to the second NDCs to 2030, that we have one goal in Uruguay is related to intensity of emissions in livestock sector. And you know that most of the World Bank of different organizations, international organizations, are interested in the reduction of methane as a way to achieve the Paris Agreement goal. And they give us a reduction of 1% of an interest if we achieve and 1 point more in the reduction in the intensity. So in action, because we need to find out how this these things can be implemented in the country. The country developed what's called a climate and nature fund in Uruguay, where is the place where all the reduction of interest of these different instruments, they get all the money together, they gather all the money there to then take a look of which are the strategy of the country and try to put the money there to scale up. So in agriculture mainly, for that reduction, we are going to achieve about 12 million of dollars that we are going to use it directly in a big program in the country to achieve the goal of reducing the intensity of emissions by giving advice to the farmers and have a technician per farmer to make agriculture programs, to better practices program, as was told. I mean, this is the issue, but sometimes you need to find a way how to finance that instrument, and that's the difficult point. So we find out that with these different instruments, we have the money, we have the money to scale up goods practices that we have, validation technologies that we want to implement, and sometimes the farmers is not available for the farmers. So with this type of instrument, we find out that it's a good way for the farmers. I mean, talking from our point of view, that is very difficult to get grants now. So it's very difficult to get grants. All people want grants, but for us it's very difficult because of our economy. So we need to find out different type of instrument and we are looking at that. And I think that is a good way for developing countries to take a look at that type of instruments.
Thank you so much, Gonzalo. And let's appreciate Gonzalo's input. So I know you do have to leave. Do you want to stay for a couple questions or? Okay. All right. Thanks. Yeah, so, and I really appreciate those comments because I think you've linked for us this aspect of, first, it's in your NDC and you have a target around that, and then the financial instruments and the data from the farmers and everything kind of all congeal and come together to help support this financing for the livestock sector. So I think that's a really nice example. And I want to first come to Sharon. We've heard about the Uruguay example, and we've heard from Michael at his role at FMO and from Enna from a science organization. From a farmer's point of view, what are the gaps you see, or how do you see all of this kind of coming down to the ground and benefiting farmers? What is working? Where are the gaps?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'll speak for farmers in Kenya and globally. And I really want to appreciate what the banks are doing, especially in guaranteeing what you do at guaranteeing banks to invest on areas that are prone to climate effects, especially on in Kenya, where we have areas that are prone to floods, droughts. Yeah, so providing incentives to such farmers or to banks really help them to have faith and to invest more in such areas. That's what really farmers need. They need access to finance, loans, the grants, and all that, and having banks that are available, that have protection actually from people like you is really important. I also want to comment on data, and this is what we really do at KENAF, especially in the Pillar 6 on ICT and data. And to mention that farmers are really organized. At KENAF, we have the national level, we have the county level, we have the sub-county level, and the ward level. Ward level is actually at the grassroots level. And also globally, where we have the World Farmers Organization. So farmers are really organized, and this calls for partnership so that when you need the information, the data, you work with farmer organization, you work with cooperatives. Farmers are really organized, and all the data are available. So this involves the information on the youth, on the women in agriculture. The gaps could be the policy, where we have to advocate for the policy reforms and create an inclusive interest on finance that includes women and youth. And I'm speaking from the background where women and youth do not really have access to land ownership. So in most cases, access to financial resources, you need maybe a title deed to get the loans. So we need to bring more inclusive reforms that appreciate the youth and women in agriculture and also smallholder farmers. Um, so what we do at KENAF, we provide capacity building for farmers, and we have the agribusiness trainings, and we mostly focus also on youth and women, especially for youth where they see agriculture as a dirty job. Yeah, most of them are really looking for white-collar job, but now capacity building them on the importance of agriculture, the importance of that farming is just any other job, just like any other job. You can get money from that. I also mentioned about the digitalization, and we have this USSD where farmers can get the market prices, the market linkages, and we are working with, I mentioned about partnerships, so MasterCard that brings in digitalization. We also support the development of value-added products. So this is to increase the market space for farmers. And yeah, that is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sharon. So I really like your point that farmers are organized and we need to be working through those organizations, reaching farmers through partnership, through farmers organizations like your own. So I want to now come to Paul and first of all, just maybe respond to some of the things that you've heard so far. And from your organization's point of view, how are you kind of stepping into this? What activities are you undertaking to use data to bring finance to food systems?
Thank you. So maybe I'll first react to what has been said. At Ingofin, we have been investing in agriculture for more than 15 years, private equity, private debt, but also technical assistance. And I must say, I agree with everything that has been said so far. And Anna, I very much like what you said. We absolutely need innovative financial products. We absolutely need to work with local banks like FMO does, and we absolutely need more technical assistance, science, etc. for the farmers. So I fully agree with that. Maybe I'll add one thing. My wife is a farmer. She's an organic farmer. She grows flowers that she sells to restaurants, top chefs that put those edible flowers in their meals. And when we talk together about business, we talk about the weather, insects, biology, soil. We never talk accounting. We never talk about reporting of data, etc. And if we want to attract private capital to the sector, we need to make sure that those SMEs, that those farmer organizations have good CFOs on board that can report data, financial data, but also non-financial data. So I think that's something we don't talk much about, but that's from the ground, we see that that's important as well. So that's my first reaction. And then maybe I'll give 3 examples of what we're doing at Incofin. I'll be very short. The first example is our Fair Trade Access Fund. That's a fund that we've launched almost 15 years ago. And what we do is mainly providing trade finance for farmers, cooperatives, producers, organizations, SMEs who export products like cacao, coffee, nuts, etc. to Europe and the US. one of the initial important goals of this fund is to make sure that those smallholder farmers get a fair remuneration for the products that they sell. Now, what we realize today is that those farmers also can or already do provide ecosystem services. And what we're trying to do now is to help them with financial support, but also with technical support. And I hope we can work with CGIAR on that to help them get payment for those ecosystem services. So fair price for the product they sell, but also a fair price for all the other services they deliver. So that's and science is extremely important there. One example. Second example, our nutrition finance facility. That's a fund that we launched last year. The goal here is to finance SMEs that produce nutritious food for poor communities in sub-Saharan Africa. And who benefits the most from nutritious food? Children. Who care the most about children? Women. And what we realized with that fund is it's easier for us to reach really SMEs that are owned by women, SMEs where a lot of women are working, etc. So it's nutritious for us. Nutrition is for us is more than just the nutritious aspect. There is also a gender aspect that's very important. And the third example that we like to give of what we do, it's a private equity investment that we did in India, more specifically in Kashmir. Kashmir, not an easy region. And there we invest in a company that has a whole business model around the production and distribution of apples. And the main goal is really to help those farmers improve their productivity and as such get a higher income. And they're really getting a higher income. And we see two side effects of this investment that are quite interesting. The first one is, and with the owner or the founder of this company, we looked at Google Earth over time in the region where he invests. And what you see is that the region is very brown with little green dots. And over time, the whole region becomes greener and greener. So from biodiversity perspective, it has a positive impact. And then there is a second very positive impact of positive trend is that those farmers, they start earning more money. Very important from a development perspective. That company started with working with older farmers. And what you see now is most of their clients are younger farmers. That means that the young generation sees that their parents are making money in farming and they're coming back to the rural areas. So very positive development. And all this is only possible with innovation, with science. This company is very much science-based. So a couple of examples of what we're doing.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you telling us about your wife and her farming activities. I also have a spouse that is a farmer. He grows seed in Kenya. And so, we also talk about what pests is he dealing with, the security issues, people coming in and stealing the maize. And, it's things like that I think from a research point of view, we're not always thinking about those issues. Maybe we're focused on the agronomy or the genetics of the crop, but there's a whole range of issues that farmers are facing that maybe as research we don't understand, but through partnership we can bring more of these to the fore and really understand what farmers are facing and how we can be engaged in these, helping these food systems. So Mauricio, I want to now hear from you, and I'm really glad that we have this range of people on our panel, because I think Anna is from the Impact for Sustainable Finance team within CGIAR, but they're a small team who really understand the finance aspects. For me, I really don't understand finance that well. But I do want to learn, and I do want to understand, what are the mechanisms we can use to be reaching farmers through their organizations. And so from your point of view, from what you've heard so far, what are some of the things that your business is doing, and what can we learn from your experiences?
Thanks a lot. It's been quite a journey. Sorry, I will say because I also started financing sustainable food systems. So we used to call it just agriculture, back in the day, 20 years ago. It's been evolving a lot. So I must say that before it was just extending finance to aggregators, coffee cooperatives and the like, to be able to export more was enough to prove that you were doing something interesting and impactful. Now, and I can react also to Paul's experience. When I was working at Responsibility, we started to add more layers of impact, because that's where you really want to start working, not just counting farmers, counting hectares, but really trying to see what are the main problems. And at Responsibility, we developed a vehicle that was called together with the CGIAR. It was Climate Smart Food Systems Fund. So there is where you add this sense that one of the main risks, of course, is climate. It's been there forever, and we've been discussing that. But it's more acute now, and the solutions are there, and we know them for quite some time. But the financing has been lacking a partner, which is science, and how to really work with the farmers and see if it's possible to transfer these practices. So what we developed is a product that the investment officer, the one placing the loan, is important, but as important is the science, the technical person working with that loan officer, because only together they will develop a good investment, a good loan in this case, and it has to be long term, because in 1 year you cannot really tackle these problems, get the right assessment, find the right tools, and work with the farmers. So that's currently the Climate Smart Food Systems, and FMO was an anchor investor. So we work very closely with FMO to design the fund, particularly on the ENS aspect, because agriculture is a high-risk ENS, environmental and social activity. Now, yeah, I took a sabbatical and I realized I could do something on my own after, and yeah, I left Responsibility in really good terms. I'm still part of the investment committee of that fund, but I wanted to work on something that is now, and together with the CG, we strongly believe that circularity is the next really big aspect, how we can help farmers. And circularity means not only just recycle. It's really upcycle water. It's particularly valorizing waste. So that is the bioeconomy angle of it. And we're betting on biochar as a very interesting product that you can really valorize waste, and you can scale up and aggregate that to really not only support the valorization through even carbon credits, but particularly work with the farmers and bring it back to the soil of the farmers. And that is very technical assistance intensive. Why? Because currently these type of solutions are all about mitigation, and the finance goes to mitigation, but you really need to work with the farmers to again stop counting things and really work 5 years to 10 years on improving adaptation. And that is, nobody's financing it. And you will see the magic of this type of solutions only when you work with the farmers 5 to 10 years. And reacting to the experience of Uruguay, if I might say, what we do is just proof of concepts. 150 million here globally, 150 million there, 30 million here. The Incofin's fund on nutrition is a really good example. It's a proof of concept. But if we want to take it at scale, you need to work with banks, because those are the ones that they will really implement these proof of concepts. We are just experimenting with technical assistance, grants, blended finance, and the next level is the countries. This sustainability-linked loan from the World Bank to Uruguay is probably one of those examples. So I think everything's linked, and only all of that together will really close the gap that we can really work with the farmers, because you have different levels and different actors playing together. But all in all, data and science need to be hand in hand of finance. Otherwise, we will go back to the days that extending a loan, counting farmers, counting women will be enough for impact.
Thank you so much. And I think that really brings it nicely back to Gonzalo. I know did you tell me you have to go very soon? Do you have any reaction to that before you leave around kind of nutrient cycling and understanding kind of the circular aspects? I know you mentioned that a lot of the finance is going to mitigation. If we bring in this circularity, are we then addressing adaptation from your point of view?
Yes. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the rest of the panelists for the presentation. I agree in most of the things that you already said. I think that we are in the same page, and all we are looking the same things. I agree that probably circularity is one of the issues that we need to go on working. No, I mean we developed, was not easy, but we developed a bioeconomy and a circularity strategy in Uruguay, and here is where come, I think, in that view, here is where they come the institutionality of the countries, and this is a key aspect that we need to take care, because there are different interests among different ministries in the countries. When you start working with the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Economy, the economy want more money, the environment want to keep the environment, so they want to not to do anything to the land, no fertilizer, they want to keep biodiversity, and then you have the Ministry of Agriculture that want to produce more because they want more income, the farmer want to produce more. So there is where appear the conflicts in the countries when they try to put in practice some policies. That is my experience that I saw in the last years. And I think that the institutionality and the common view of the policy is a key aspect if we want to follow for sustainable and adaptation policies to the country. And that's a key issue that most of the country need to keep the line of the government. I mean, what happens I can talk about what happened in Latin America, that they changed the governments and they changed the view. So they try to rebuild everything. And that's something that needs more working institutionality if we want to go further in climate actions in the countries. Because what we saw some examples that they changed the government, they don't believe in climate change. So what all was done? They clean it and then start again. So I think that all the government need to have a line of work, a long-term strategies, independence of the policy that they are in the government in one moment.
Thank you so much. Whenever you need to leave, go ahead. It's okay. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Let's give him a round of applause. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming. Great. So I want to hear more, Sharon, about the capacity building that you've talked about with the farmers in Kenya. How do you reach out to women? How do you get the youth involved? Can you give us some more kind of specifics around what you're doing to get them in? Have you been successful in linking to any finance mechanisms?
Thank you very much. Let me mention the two important events in the KENAF calendar. We have the Youth Council and the Women Council. So every year we have events on Youth Council, Women Council, where we bring together women specifically to talk about issues that affects them. And this is where we bring in the concept of agribusiness, we bring in the finance issues, we bring in the climate change issues. And this is important because we're actually having one in the next 20 days at the end of the month. And for this year, we focus on finance and the climate issues, and we also build their capacities on leadership. So for the youth, we bring youth across the country, all farmers below the age of 35. And we also talk about the issues affecting youth, and finance we cannot avoid finance. We cannot avoid finance because even starting
farming activity, you need funds to run all the operations. So it's been successful. It's been successful, and we've seen change, and we really hope for the best. And as partnership has been mentioned, we really try to bring in banks, we try to bring in research institutions, we try to bring in all the data that is available so that we can provide real-time information to youth and also provide market linkages, because after building their capacity, after them engaging in activities, farming activities, we also need to find market to their products so that they don't just farm, we don't get to waste the resources, because if we are getting finance institution in place, it means we're talking about loans, we're talking about grants, and the loans has interest. So we capacity build them to ensure that they are able to take the loans and also able to pay back. So the other thing I really want to talk about is on the Kenya Farm Forestry, Afforestation and Biodiversity Conservation Program. And this is where we encourage farmers to allocate at least 15% of their land holdings for conservation. And in this case, we are targeting to plant 15 billion trees in Kenya. And youth and women really comes in the establishment and management of nurseries. So it's a business thing for them. It's a source of revenue to them. Where women are well known for managing nurseries. Women are known for their care, so they extend the care on the seedlings. So we bring in youth and women, and we also have the silvopastoral systems, where we have in the semi-arid areas of Kenya, KENAF really does capacity building on silvopastoral systems. So most pastoralists really are not involved, especially in the green programs. And so we do capacity building to let them know that they can have their livestock and still do agroforestry. They can plant the shrubs that are adaptable to their lands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon. And I really like that you're working with pastoralists as well, because I think sometimes we talk about farmers and we talk about pastoralists as if they're very separate groups, but I think they're, we can find the overlaps there, and there are pastoralists who are doing these agroforestry activities and those sorts of things. So I think that's really nice to hear that you're working on capacity building with everybody like that. So I want to give us some time for some audience interaction, and I think, Michael, did you have something first? And then, so please think of some questions. We have one microphone. I'll bring it out to anybody who has a question, and we'll have some reactions from the panel before we have our closing remarks. So. Oh, okay, thanks. Michael, please.
Thank you very much for sharing the stories. Let me get to the point. I think agroforestry is very important. And again, pioneer, develop, scale. How do you scale it? And that starts with convincing farmers that they kind of need to do it. Well, some get it, but how do you see it kind of really scaling up? What are the arguments that you use, data or non-data, to really kind of make it go faster? Because that's a struggle that we see all over the place. There are always kind of fast movers, but how do you get the mass implementation?
Thank you very much for your question. So the concept is that we plant trees that are adaptable to specific areas. And we have a planting ratio, 50% indigenous. We have fruit and fodder. Fruit and fodder for, of course, fruit for security and fodder for livestock feeds. And we also have fast-growing trees. So this is also bringing in the concept of economies. They can sell the fast-growing trees and also earn income. So we do this capacity building them in a way that they see the importance of having it. And agroforestry is important that they can plant their crops and have the trees incorporated. So they still go on with their daily lives, but they are having trees included. So it's actually accepted, and we are looking in the carbon finance where they can earn extra income from what they have. And I think the most important thing is that people really adopt what is beneficial to them. So we bring in the benefits to them, so that you don't just plant trees and it stays there. We give you the additional value, like you can earn through this.
Last question, I'll leave it. But I get it, and it sounds great. But you will encounter resistance from people that say, "Yeah, we've never done this before. Will it work?" You know, very traditional, and I can't hardly believe that everywhere you go, people go, "Oh yeah, sure. You know, here's my land, and go plant."
Of course, there are challenges. Some people really do resist, but we also do farmer to farmer learning, where they learn from successful farmers. So if a farmer sees someone is successful, it's easy actually to adopt when they see their colleagues doing it. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to react as well on that. As one of the things that you need to create is a long-term relationship with those farmers to make sure that they continue whatever support you give them on the long term. And one of the means to do that is to create a financial relationship with them. So you finance things, but through that relationship, you strengthen the long-term relationship, and that's what we're trying to do with our Fair Trade Access Fund and FMO. You're funding that fund, and so now that's a new thing that we're trying to do is really finance agroforestry projects, but because of that financial relationship, they're already used to report data to us, financial data. They will report other data, and they will be there in the long term. And it's only in the long term that they will see all the benefits from agroforestry. I mean, we're pioneering that, we're trying, and we hope it will work.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
And to add on that is that we do the assessment of the survival rates, we do follow-ups, we record, and I'm happy to report that at this point the survival rate is between 58 to 75%, which is actually a good one.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thanks. Do you want to add anything on this conversation about relationships with farmers or scaling up?
Yeah, just to highlight one aspect that, again, with the extending the loans and working with the aggregators is important, but to reach the farmers is much more difficult for funds, right? So that is where technical assistance is key, and saying the long-term relationship over 5 to 10 years, long maturities is very important. And what's something that we managed to get for the latest fund was that the technical assistance was not conditioned to own contributions by farmers. And we fought for that a lot. Why? Because when you were asking them to change, or to transition to adapt new technologies, new practices, there's always a trade-off. There is a regenerative agriculture, agroecology, and organic, but there is a trade-off. So only after 3 years and experimenting, you will be able to see benefits, and it will be with intercropping and with certain bio inputs and trials. So you need to do it over long term, and that means, again, subsidized part in Europe. Everything subsidized for the transition. Imagine asking this for smallholder farmers in emerging markets. You cannot ask them for a co-contribution. Okay, I will finance 50%, you have to put 50%. It doesn't work like that. So we fought a lot to make it no own contribution for the smallholder farmers. And believe it or not, it was a hard fight. But in the end, now that's what we were doing. Well, responsibility now. We want to implement it now for Big Valley, something similar. And those lessons learned is that they come along in really long-term technical assistance, no own contribution, and really try to understand and not be, again, dogmatic. There is a agroecology or nothing. No, I mean, it doesn't work like that in developing countries. Huh? If you have a pest, you talked about pests, it could come in the next year. Huh? You cannot say no agroecology, you cannot do it. one year they might need to use some pesticides. Yeah, they have to. So we have to be pragmatic as well. So all that, those are lessons learned. And with agroecology, it's the same. Now everything about carbon credits, certain experiences say that only $2 a year are getting to farmers when they do agroecology. Agroforestry. So we need to improve that also. So that is, and it's a very expensive technical assistance because you have to do all this MRV, a lot of MRV, and comply with the highest standards of gold standard of ERA, and a lot of money is spent on mitigation, and in the end you're giving them a very expensive technical assistance for adaptation. So I think all of that we need to learn through long-term relationship with farmers and on the ground and working with them on trials and errors. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Great. So other questions from the audience for the panelists? Talking about science and how science can help inform climate investments. Please go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Yeah. I'm Julie van der Bleek from the CGIAR. I would like to ask specifically to Mauricio, because I'm very excited to hear about your new emphasis on circularity, and I think at CGIAR we've done a lot of work on that as well. And I've worked myself with the Water Management Institute a lot. We worked a lot on wastewater reuse for agriculture, so using both the water and the nutrients, etc. And we found that it also has a lot of mitigation benefits. And I'm just wondering, in particular with circularity, and you mentioned biochar, would there be kind of additional mechanisms which could make it financially more attractive, considering the mitigation impact, considering the fact that you recycle nutrients, etc.? I mean, are there possibilities to build this into loans, to look at carbon credits, its soil improvement, etc.? So would there be ways that could make it, apart from the application itself, more attractive? Thanks.
Thanks, Julie, for that question.
Yes, it can be mitigation. It's only possible. It makes sense where it's at a scale. So biochar actually, the carbon credits pay very well at 300 per ton, dollars per ton. So that is something you can scale and can finance up to 30, 40, 70% of the plant. However, when you work at small scale and you want to add co-benefits, or let's say what Paul was saying, how to monetize these additional environmental outcomes, that is very difficult. But yes, you can structure it at a fund level, and what we're trying to see is impact-linked finance, and I mean borrowing from the sustainability-linked loans that the World Bank or banks are implementing everywhere for when you reward on outcomes. When you add water, and particularly water, you can really see, but you need to work with donors, and you need to work with financiers, how you can reward certain outcomes when they happen after 5 years. But it will be only possible after 5 years and at a fund level. Those outcomes and those rewards can be reutilized as technical assistance. And also can be transferred directly to the farmers through a kitty, let's say, that there will be there. That impact-linked finance is being successful in program, for example, that is being rewarding banks when they reach very difficult SMEs in Africa. And But yes, this is something that is more and more used, that investors are willing to reward on outcomes. So, but yes, it's a slow process because those outcomes will be seen only, particularly in agriculture, after 3 to or 5 years. Yeah.
Yes, another question? Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Elvina Garaeva from Incofi Investment Management. I have a question about agri-techs. You know, I've been visiting quite a few tech events recently, and I see like really a big number of agri-techs popping up globally, and they propose some wonderful services in the area of data collection, you know, the reporting, ESG reporting, and overall, you know, all type of services. And I just had a question maybe to FMO, but also more on the implementation level. So, are there any specific focus today on these agri-techs, and how we make sure that we actually implement them like to the fields, and we create cooperation in between this, you know, science-based techs and the agricultural sector?
Yeah, it's a great question. I in my intro mentioned the venture capital fund. So, for instance, we are financing in India the Haat. For Belgium and Dutch people, it's a bit of a strange name, but because it means something. But anyway, the Haat in India, and they link up to 300,000 Indian farmers. I mean, that's why I mentioned kind of Nigeria and Kenya and India, because you can kind of scale fast. Now they get a lot of data. But for them, that data is a source of competitive advantage. So sharing that data is a bit of a thing. So I would be very interested to see if you can play a role in a way of gathering that data on an anonymous basis in order to have a kind of a pre-competitive setup, which is not going to be easy, but there would be a role. Just like we have, I don't know if you're aware, the GEMS database, which is a database where we track with all the IFIs and MDBs kind of loans, so we can basically show results. And last year, on the back of that, we financed kind of a new innovative vehicle. Long story short, somebody needs to kind of play that role, and we do that informally because we bring all our ventures together. But if in a Cheetah Africa conference, but if it could be done on a more structural basis, like you suggest, that would be very interesting. We're not there yet, but an organization like yours could be.
That's a great question, and I just wanted to add something about FASA that is being launched. There's a very strong learning agenda, and as well as what the CFAN did for the loan products, gathering returns data, gathering loans repayment rates, gathering across anonymized data across different agricultural loans. FASA is going to be doing the same thing and aggregate the impact data across all of its investment, and it's going to be investing in about 1,000 agri SMEs. So there will be data that is related to the financial performance, the impact of these investments, as well as the long-term effect. And this data will be, the goal is to be able to share it within the 8 investment vehicles that within FASA, but also within the wider ecosystem, so that the actors can know, okay, I invested this much of catalytic capital. At the end, what did I get? What did I get for my money? And that is the goal that we are aiming for with FASA.
Thank you so much. Yes, another question in the back. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I hope it's okay if I ask a question, because I missed the entire panel because I was late. So my name is Ingmar. I'm the CEO of Climate & Company, which is one of Europe's biggest sustainable finance think tanks. And so I have 2 questions. One is, so we have created a massive demand for ESG data, let's call it sustainability data, in Europe with various pieces of legislation. And I'm just wondering, when I heard this agri-tech term, we are wondering who is going to reap the benefits of this, because if we think back to the CDM market back in the days, all the interesting high value added stuff went to eco-securities and Winrock, and not a penny stayed on the ground. And now, who are these agri-techs? Are they locally owned? That's my question, because I mean that would be very important, because I think that's the high value added stuff. It's not the sustainable agricultural commodities. That would be tremendous income sources on the ground, because those are anyways the people who know best what's happening. And the second question is, I think it will be very important for these data efforts to be compliance relevant. Yeah, because I mean the demand for this data is related to compliance with, I mean, that anyways the part, let's say, that goes to Europe, a third or whatever it is, to the EU deforestation regulation, to the corporate sustainability reporting directive, scope 3 reporting, to in the future the corporate sustainability due diligence directive. And I just was wondering, because that may be quite far away for a lot of people who are not involved in this regulatory stuff going on in Brussels. And if I could get your feedback on these 2 points, I would be very curious to hear that.
Thank you so much for that question. You know, at CGIAR, we're a public institution. All of our data is open public goods. But when we start collaborating now with financial institutions, it becomes a different matter. So I'm wondering which of our panelists, thank you, Mauricio, yes.
Yeah, so probably there are different levels. The ones this mentioned, like DHAT or the EcoSen or Samunatis, all these interesting examples are happening in countries that they have large population and they can implement this type of, and it's normally attached to a loan product, so they benefit from that data. And they are owned by locals. So these institutions are really scaling up solutions because they have innovations and they are even exporting. Like there are 2 companies in India that are going to Africa now. And in Africa, you have also homegrown agtech, very interesting, in fintechs. The drivers for the EU regulation will be very, very complicated, and it's there at another level because there's been a lot of push through banks for ESG and compliant loans, and sustainability linked loans were one of them that they suffer a lot of backlash from greenwashing, because they were just inflating their portfolios with these sustainable loans that were to Nestlé, let's say, or and just for complying with their certain high-level ESG parameters. But there's a lot of hope actually for the regulation towards corporates, because they will, if they need to comply with a lot of reporting, and there's at the level of their CFOs, not of their 2 people or sustainability, you know, that they are battling to incorporate net zero pledges. The CFO will need to report on human rights and environmental and water. And so if the CFO is involved, they will take it more seriously, and they could drive the banks to also finance this type of assets. So that's a hope. But this is my opinion, and probably FMO has a more informed opinion.
I'll keep it short. I think it's an excellent question. We are a regulated bank, so we carry a lot about this stuff in Brussels. And in July, we published an article in the Financial Times with a plea to basically rethink the timing for emerging markets on all of the CSDR data. But that aside, I think the question here would be also to CGIAR is to what level you tailor your data requests in order to be helpful to comply, because otherwise we will need to ask a second data set to all these companies, or, you know, it's just not exactly the same, and they already get completely crazy of it. I mean, within the European DFI community, we are working hard on harmonizing all of this, but I think that's how I interpret in the end your question. Can you, when you make your data sets, please look at the regulations in order to tailor them in a very helpful way. And that would be highly appreciated.
Thank you so much. Thanks for that question. I think we're learning a lot. I know Anna is shaking her head and taking note of that. So thank you for that. I want to introduce a closing speaker. Belen Situler is the director of World Rural Forum. And this is a plural network that works in favor of family farming and sustainable rural development, composed by family farming federations and organizations, rural development organizations, and agriculture cooperatives and research centers. Belen holds a degree in political science and master's degrees in cooperation for development and social research. She has more than 25 years of work experience in the field of international cooperation, political dialogue, and advocacy on issues related to rural development and family farming. So she'll give us some 5 minutes of remarks, and then we'll close. Thank you, Belen.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As we close today's session, I would like to thank our co-organizers, CGIAR, the World Farmers Organization, and PLACA for partnering with the World Rural Forum to bring together these critical discussions. My special thanks also to all the speakers, the panelists, for your valuable experiences, insights, contributions, remarks. Family farmers produce 80% of our foods in value terms in the world. This means that we cannot transform our food systems without family farmers. And in addition to producing food, family farming plays a key role in improving livelihoods, in conserving biodiversity, in maintaining culture, and in achieving inclusive and sustainable development in the communities. This key role was recognized by the United Nations through the declaration of the Decade of Family Farming, which acknowledges the enormous contribution of family farming to the achievement of the SDGs. Family farmers are on the front line of climate action. They are implementing sustainable practices, numerous sustainable practices. You've explained some of them, like agroecology and others on their farms. But most of the times, these farmer-led solutions are financed from their own pockets. Today, just to give you data, small-scale family farmers only receive 0.3% of the international climate finance. It's very, very small amount. So if we want to accelerate this positive impact of family farming, we must improve direct access of family farmers to climate finance. And along with increasing funding, we have to think on the importance of improving its quality. This means recognizing family farmers as strategic partners, not only beneficiaries of funding, and engaging them in the design and implementation of the financial instruments. I think that would help us to solve some of the limits and constraints that were explained also when we try to engage farmers, no, in this. It means tailoring these funds to meet the specific needs of family farmers, with a special focus on gender and youth inclusion too. And it means recognizing the key role of family farmers organizations in delivering results and in partnering with financial institutions to have good results on the ground. So to achieve this, family farmers need to prove the benefits of supporting them. That's a big constraint that we have these days. This requires generating evidence. And for that, we need to close closely with the scientific community. The alliance between family farmers, science, and financing institutions, and I would say governments, although we had our negotiator that had to leave today, but he mentioned also the importance of the policy frameworks, no? So we need to work, all of us, in alliance, and is essential for transforming our food systems. So I would like to say that the World Rural Forum is looking forward to continuing working with all of you to scale up these solutions, and something that was also referred to, that not only meet climate targets, which are really, really very important, but also to promote equality and social inclusion in the communities, towards the achievement of the SDGs that we cannot forget either. And finally, I would like to thank Laura Kramer for guiding us through the discussions and to the audience for your valuable contributions. Thank you all.
Thank you, Bella, and thank you, everyone, for coming. Yes, please stick around. There's more events later in this pavilion today, and if you have any burning questions or takeaway thoughts, we're available up here. Thank you all.